It's Jeff Weinberg. I'm so glad that you guys were able to make it tonight. Just want to give a quick background on how we got here. This storytelling event was an idea that I came up with while running, which is where all my good ideas happen. My wife Susie produces a storytelling show, and it occurred to me, since we can't run together, which I'm so desperately trying to do, why not get together and share some stories about running? So this is a bit of an experiment, so bear with us if we have some glitches as we go, but I'm really glad that you're here. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, I'm Susie. We are so excited that you are here, and we thank you so much for your support and your patience. And we are so excited that Peter Sagal is with us this evening as our MC for our storytelling event. A little bit about Peter. Peter is not only the venerable and delightful host of NPR's award-winning news quiz show, Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. He is an avid long-distance runner. And Wikipedia tells us he started running with his dad when he was 15, ran cross-country in high school, but really didn't take it up seriously again until about 15 years ago here in Chicago. Peter has since run 14 marathons. He was a featured columnist in Runner's World for 10 years. And in 2018, he wrote a really funny and poignant book called The Incomplete Book of Running. So, without further ado, may I welcome our host for the hour, Peter Sagal.
Hey, hello everybody. I'm assuming you're going nuts in excitement just to see my face. And for those of you who have never seen my face before, all I can say is I'm a little disappointed too. So it's true, I wrote a book a couple years ago called The Incomplete Book of Running, and in it I try to encourage everybody, especially people who don't regularly run, to try running, and it didn't work. People enjoyed the book and they bought the book, but I just didn't start that mass new running boom that I hoped to. So I came across an ancient monkey's paw, which I was told had magical properties, that you can make wishes upon it. And I said, if only there were a situation in which the only exercise available to people was to go out for a run, then maybe we'd get everybody running. So basically, this is all my fault. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that this is what it would take. So a lot of people are out running for the first time. You've probably seen them if you've been out on your runs, as I have in Oak Park, where I live. People who are just, doing it because they have no other choice and because they need to get out of the house. And one of the things we know about those people who are running in their yoga pants and their Keds or their basketball shoes or whatever they're starting out with is that even though they might think it's a pretty boring activity, we know it's not. We know, those of us who do it all the time, that it is the source of all kinds of things: relaxation, inspiration, motivation, health, mental stability. And if you're anything like me, and I assume by the fact you're spending your evening looking at a computer screen for this, you are like me, it's become very essential to all of our lives. So tonight we have 6 people who are going to be telling you stories about what running has meant to them through stories, through reflection, through reading their writing. And we're delighted that we can all, at a time when everybody is separated, even running groups are not meeting, we can all gather together in this virtual way. So we're going to go from speaker to speaker. Like I said, we have 6 of them lined up for the next hour. And one of the things I'd ask is, since it is a little lonely where we all are, when each story is done, clap and we'll bring up your microphone so the speaker, the storyteller, will be able to hear you. Because I think, frankly, that'll do everybody a lot of good, both to hear applause and even to offer it. So thank you so much for being here. It is now my pleasure to, introduce our first storyteller, Lisa Colleen Ebel. She is a runner and host of the storytelling show Inspired Live Lit. She is a mother, a grandmother, a writer, a runner, a teacher, and coach who rarely makes it through the telling of one story without interrupting herself to tell yet another. I'm a little bit like that myself. She is grateful to experience and witness the magical way stories connect, inspire, and heal. So please welcome Lisa.
Nice.
Lisa.
Oh. Okay. Running used to clear my head. And now when I run, my head is just filled with thoughts like, damn, Lisa, you are so slow. Or why did I ever even love this sport in the first place? And where is that runner's high? Like I used to talk and laugh with my running partners for miles and miles and miles. And now I struggle just to keep up with them. I used to love the way that my body felt after I run, but not anymore. So after decades of running, I quit. Like sure, it hurt to quit, but it hurt way more to just beat myself up while I ran. So I promised myself I would not run again until I could do it joyfully. And then one day I had this vision. I saw myself running happily with a dog. And I Googled running dogs and learned that Runner's World deems standard poodles the best endurance runners. Now standards, they're the big ones. They grow to be 65 pounds and they have really long, slender legs. I did a little more research and realized that they didn't shed and they're ridiculously smart. So I decided that's it. That's what I needed, a standard poodle. I was a little concerned, like what if I go and get this dog and I still don't run? But still, I went to go look at a litter of black standard pups. And this one little guy ran right up to me. He sat, looked me in the eyes, and there he was, my new running partner. On the way home, I found myself stopping at 40 Acres, my very favorite woods. I popped his first ever collar on him, and I started to run again. And my pup was sensational. He scampered every which way, smelling everything. His enthusiasm reminded me of why I used to love running. We were sensational together. I named him Pace because he and I would run the same pace. At Pace's first medical visit, the vet said, "You got a really good one," which I already knew. And he explained to me, he's too little to run far, just 1 mile a day, he instructed. I didn't tell him that we'd already gone much further than that, and I adhered to Pace's training plan. So out we went every morning, me and my precious pup Pace. We ran 1 mile and then we walked. Now walking was new to me. I'd been running my entire life, like running fast, running away from the hard parts of life, running to prove that I was good enough. And now I was walking. And then the vet cleared Pace to run 2 miles. So side by side we ran 2 miles and then we walked. And then the vet cleared him to run 3. And this hour together of running and walking became our sacred hour every single morning. And then he got cleared to run 4 miles and then 5. And then we were free to run as far as we wanted. And we were doing it joyfully. And yet something unexpected happened. I learned to love to walk. Like I love the thoughts just floated right into my head when I wasn't in a hurry. You know, I used to have to outrun my worries, but now when a worry popped into my head, Pace and I, we'd just take a few more steps and I'd see the situation a little bit differently. Step by step, Pace helped me discover the troubles, that they're not so much problems, they're just life, a chance to learn. My Pace, he helped me find peace. And how cool that those 2 words, pace and peace, are just 1 letter apart. My very favorite time of day is early morning. While I'm drinking my piping hot dark coffee, I write. My Pace sits right by me, sometimes on top of me, and he's patient for a bit. And then he puts his huge paw on my notebook, letting me know he is ready to go. And some days we walk, some days we run, some days we do a combo, but we do every step with joy. So 2 weeks ago, Pace and I found ourselves in isolation, just like the rest of Chicago. And it gave us the gift of time. Because now after our morning walking, running adventure, I didn't have to leave him to go to work. So we settled into our days, walking, napping, reading, running, writing, and all of it together. And then day 4 of isolation, my precious pup throws up. So 2 vets and a whole crew at the ER do absolutely everything they can. And they weren't able to save him or even diagnose the cause of his death. And I really wasn't sure, like, what would I do the very next morning when I woke up and he wasn't there? So I woke up and I wrote just like I always did. And then when I was done, I put on my running clothes and I ran. I ran the same route the Payson I took every single morning. And as I ran along Lake Michigan alone, I felt fit. I felt fast. Now, granted, I wasn't wearing a watch, so I can't confirm that I was fast, but I can confirm that I was running joyfully. And it felt like Pace was still with me. And then Lori Lightfoot closes the lakefront. So I'm thrown, but I'm not going to be stopped. So I decided to run in my building up and down the stairs. So there I am, setting my pace on the stairs, hauling, dripping with sweat. And I'm feeling strong. And I stop dead in my tracks when I see who's coming down the stairs. It's a black standard poodle and his owner. Now the owner probably thinks I'm catching my breath because I'm doing such strenuous exercise, but oh no, it is his gorgeous dog that has me gasping for air. "Did you see my dog Pace?" I blurt, and he looks at me kind of confused. I explained, "Just picture, it's in the lobby. He's our pet of the month." Now this guy's probably thinking like my dog has to pee and I don't really have time to talk to random sweaty women in the stairwell, but I keep going. "Pace died last week," I tell him. "I'm so sorry," he says. "You can pet Augie anytime." And I give Augie a little pet. His curly, soft fur feels like Pace. And I want to sit on the ground and I want to have Augie sit on my lap and bawl. But that might scare us all. So I hold it together, I say thanks, and I continue on my workout. Now what? What are the chances that I'm going to meet a standard poodle in the stairwell of our building? And as I run up the stairs, I think about how lucky I was to run and to walk and to laugh and to cuddle with Pace, the dog who was perfect for me, just perfect. The sweet soul that put the joy back into my running and helped me discover a new level of peacefulness. So I am forever grateful to the black, curly-haired pup who was 65 pounds of pure love. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Lisa. I also run with my dogs. I have 2 of them. They drag me around. I anticipate dying one day when they see a squirrel across the street at just the wrong time. Next up, Kevin Biolsi. Kevin is a statistician by trade, but found that wasn't getting the kind of laughs that he wanted. Imagine why. So he turned to storytelling. And he's been telling stories about the Chicago area for the past 2.5 years. He was a homeschooling dad for 14 years. I'm sure he might have some tips for those of us who are homeschooling through no fault of our own. He also brews beer. Kevin has run races from 5K through 50K, although these days he runs as much for the social benefits as the physical. At least that's what he used to say a little while ago. So everybody give it up for Kevin Biolsi.
Oh, yeah, sure. If you just leave your name.
Were not the things that bothered me most about running marathons. It was the muscle cramping that kept me from achieving my time goals again and again and again. I ran my first marathon in November 1981 in St. Louis, Missouri, just after cross-country season, my senior year in high school. Unfortunately, in that race, somewhere around mile 15, I had to make what I'll call a non-negotiable pit stop. And during those several minutes, I'm getting some feedback. During those several minutes of sedentary contemplation, my legs cramped up and I never really recovered. As a result, rather than the time of 3 hours and 15 minutes that I was hoping for, I finished in a disappointing 4 hours, 6 minutes. My second marathon was again in St. Louis, but this time 22 and a half years later, in April 2004, just a couple months shy of my 40th birthday. My goal then, and for several years after, as it turned out, was simply to break 4 hours. Projections based on my times at shorter distances all suggested that this was very achievable. And I think we all know that those projections are 100% accurate 100% of the time. Another bout of leg cramps, though, forced me to walk much of the last 6 miles, and I finished in 4 hours and 12 minutes. October 2004, the Chicago Marathon. I passed the halfway point at 1 hour, 55 minutes, giving me 10 minutes of wiggle room to finish under 4 hours. 8 miles down the road, though, I found myself lying on my back in Chinatown for nearly an hour till the leg cramps subsided. And then, having resigned myself to the dreaded did not finish status, I took a Red Line CTA train in a ride of shame back to the starting area to pick up my check bag. April 2005, St. Louis Marathon, leg cramps, 4:21. October 2005, Chicago Marathon, leg cramps, 4:40. April 2006, St. Louis Marathon. Now, that particular race had a dubious distinction. Somewhere around the halfway point, I happened to glance down, and I saw that my yellow shirt was starting to be discolored by 2 growing red spots. Those 2 spots, of course, were a result of the bloody nipples mentioned at the outset of this story. Fortunately, prior to the race, my family and I had planned out several points along the course where they would try to see me. And at the next such location, I let my wife Carol know that I needed to change my shirt for obvious reasons. So she pulled a red running shirt out of her backpack and handed it to me. After changing my shirt and unpinning my race number from my conspicuously bloodied yellow shirt, and pinning it on to my soon-to-be bloodied but less conspicuously so red shirt, I looked over to my parents, who were also there to support me. And I saw that my dad had his video recorder trained right on me. And I realized right then that the 2006 St. Louis bloody nipple incident had been videographically documented for all of posterity. With that fact weighing heavily on my mind, I headed out to finish the race. And for the first time, no leg cramps. Stomach cramps, 4:26. It was at about this time that my good friend Sarah suggested to me that given so many disappointments, perhaps the marathon really wasn't my thing, and maybe I should focus my running on shorter distances. Given my ever-expanding unfortunate history with the marathon, I had to admit what she was saying made a lot of sense. 2007, April, St. Louis Marathon. As I approached the 26-mile mark, I was set to finish under 4 hours, with a couple of minutes to spare. Moments later, less than 2 blocks from the finish line, my legs seized up so severely that I had to support myself by hanging onto a parking meter until the cramps died down enough for me to hobble to the finish. 4 hours, 0 minutes, 38 seconds. Yeah, that one kind of hurt. April 2008, St. Louis Marathon. I'd adopted a more rigorous training schedule, and on race day, I was comfortably ahead of 4-hour pace through mile 22. But then came the twinges that typically foreshadowed the leg cramps. I alternated between walking and jogging, but time was slipping away. And as I started the final mile, it was clear that once again, I would fail in my attempt to run a sub 4-hour marathon. But then, as if the running gods had all gotten together and decided, you know, we've had a lot of fun over the years tormenting Kevin. Let's give him a fighting chance today. There appeared next to me the last remnants of the 4-hour pace group. Just a few runners left, Among them, the pace group leader, still holding up his little sign emblazoned with 400. I heard him tell that handful of runners, keep up this pace and you'll finish under 4 hours. Now, I knew with near certainty that if I tried to go with the group and run the rest of the way in, my legs would characteristically seize up. But I decided to just go ahead and go until they cramped. I really had nothing to lose at that point. And over the years, I'd actually become accustomed to writhing on the ground in pain, so there'd really be nothing new there. So with some trepidation, I switched from walking to running, and I latched on to that small group of runners. Over that last mile, we clicked off yard after yard after yard. And by some minor miracle, my legs held up, no cramping, 3 hours, 59 minutes, 44 seconds. Numerically, it was less than a 0.5% improvement over the previous year, but psychologically, it was a world of difference. Having finally cleared this hurdle, I was now confident that I could continue to tweak my training, my nutrition, my hydration, and that now I would only get better at the marathon. October 2009, a brand new event for me, the Milwaukee Lakefront Marathon. My training had been going great, and I felt that this was my chance to finally live up to my marathon potential. At mile 21, my legs cramped so badly that I couldn't even walk the rest of the way in. I had to catch a ride back to the finish line with a race volunteer, one who clearly could not read his audience as he regaled me with stories of his many 100-mile ultramarathon races. He dropped me off at the end of the course. Another did not finish on my permanent record. After that experience, and having broken the 4-hour barrier only once in many tries, I thought back to what Sarah had said about the marathon maybe not being my thing. So with Milwaukee as my final attempt, I gave up running marathons. I didn't give up running though. And after many years running as a solitary runner, I started running with a small group. And those 5-mile social runs 3 days a week became more important to me than any solo training I'd ever done. And with all of that free time I now had not training for marathons, I took up brewing beer, and I've been unhindered by leg cramps ever since. Thank you.
Give it up for Kevin. Kevin Mayolsi. You were talking about your cramps, Kevin, and I have been there.
Oh, you got muted.
I got muted. Hang on. I'm trying to, there. Now I'm unmuted. I hope you can hear me. I was about to say I've been there in the end of a marathon dealing with those cramps. I've bargained with my own legs at time out loud, which is a weird thing. Next up. Shift Command A. All right, now I'm unmuted. Next up, Danielle Wheeler. She's originally from Flowood, Mississippi. Hey. She started running when she moved to Chicago. She found Kara and Jamie and John of the 1030 Awesome group. I guess that's different than the regular 1030 group. And they tricked her into loving running. She has done 14 marathons. She's helped start 2 running groups, Crown Heights Running Group in Brooklyn, Rogers Park Running Club here in Chicago. She loves talking people into running marathons. And she's handling these difficult times by eating lots of dark chocolate, running, virtual connecting, creating, and snuggling her kitties and husband. Please welcome to our virtual room, Danielle Wheeler.
Yay!
Of telling a story at Is This a Thing back in February, and the prompt was Like a Phoenix, and I would like to share that story with you today. I can't help but think of Fox from Harry Potter. when I think of Phoenix. And for those of you who aren't Potterheads, he's Dumbledore's bird. You know, Harry's wand was made out of one of his feathers. This mythological bird carried a magical hat that basically saves Harry Potter's life. He is a badass. Harry Potter was a huge part of my life growing up. It hit the shelves in the US September 1st, 1998. Harry was about to celebrate his 11th birthday, and I was about to celebrate my 13th in November. I grew up with him, and I always did like younger guys. Devouring the pages long into the night, we laughed with Ron, fought Dementors, and fell in love with Jenny. My mom at the time was listening to American Family Radio and attending a local Baptist church, both who criticized my new best friend's adventures and were convinced that I was learning witchcraft. So, along with my brother's Pokemon cards, they met their death in our living room fireplace. Literally, my mom burned my books. Yes. I moved out of the book burning South and to Chicago to pursue performing. When I was roughly 27, I noticed something on my skin. The skin around my fingers started turning white. Odd. I guess I had mixed some kind of chemicals together that shouldn't have when I was like cleaning. Yeah, that was totally what was happening to my hands. But, you know, just in case, I'd ask the dermatologist I worked for. I had been her nanny for a while and trusted her opinion more than my own WebMD dark rabbit hole. So yeah, I asked her. And she took a look and confirmed what several Google images had led me to believe. I had vitiligo, a loss of pigment in the skin due to the deconstruction of pigment-forming cells known as melanocytes. Thanks, WebMD. She prescribed me some topical medicine, and I was supposed to try to see if it worked. I don't like goopy stuff on my skin. I don't like prescription anything. I didn't know what sort of chemicals this crap had in it or side effects it had, but, you know, I tried it. Night after night, I covered my skin that had lost pigment in this goop. And every night I became more discouraged as I saw zero repigmenting with this uncomfortable, possibly toxic, expensive medicine. I hated how much time and energy I was spending with no results. A few months later, I moved to Brooklyn with my then boyfriend to pursue our performing careers. And after a while, I just stopped trying with the medicine. I saw another dermatologist to get more information about this condition that was rapidly changing my appearance. This particular dermatologist asked me, "Did you experience a lot of stress as a child?" You mean like watching your mother burn your favorite childhood book that you used as an escape from the complete and utter chaos that was your life? Yes, I did experience some stress. I left the doctor's office in tears and defeated and feeling completely out of control of my body. PSA, for the record, there's little research known about this condition, and there is no cure. It affects 1 in every 100 people of all ages, genders, and ethnicities, and some have classified it as an autoimmune disorder. It's not hereditary, and there is no known cause. So, doctor, blame it all on your childhood. You weren't totally correct. I was freaking out. Every new person I met was Danielle with vitiligo. I mean, nobody said that. You know, the running club in New York was wonderful and loving and accepting, and like all runners are, but you know, this struggle was completely an internal struggle. I felt like I had lost my identity. Who was I in this new skin? I mean, I've always been this insecure about my looks, body, talent. I mean, like, come on, the list goes on. And now this on top of all of that, I felt like my performing career was over. I mean, why did I decide to go into an industry that cares so much about appearance? I was done for. Who's gonna cast a spotted lady for anything? While I was dealing with these internal battles, externally, I was running around the Upper West Side as a nanny, and I would get asked questions by kids about my skin. And I would explain. it's, it's like my body has given me a tattoo. I didn't have to pay for it. One little girl started playing the cloud game with my skin one day. This looks like a flower. I think your skin is pretty. Y'all, I immediately teared up. I realized, kids would ask me questions where adults would just stare. And I got stared at a lot, being a runner in, a tank top and shorts, and lots of stares came my way. But this little girl asking me this is when I came up with the idea to write a children's book about vitiligo. Everything I found about vitiligo was about fixing it and covering it up. Procedures like light therapy 3 times a week and bleaching all of your skin, Michael Jackson style. Yep, he had vitiligo too. The #1 side effect is depression, and it didn't seem like anyone was talking about acceptance or the depression. I married that guy I moved to Brooklyn with, and he always accepted me and loved me, even when I couldn't. Even with him by my side, it still hurt to see myself on the save the date, in our photos, speckled. We moved back to Chicago after living in Brooklyn for 2 years and got married. And at the wedding, I was seeing friends I had who hadn't seen me in my new skin. And it was hard. Running into people I hadn't seen since my spots had taken over was really, really uncomfortable. I wrote a poem on World Vitiligo Day, June 25th, 2018. Ironically, it's also my wedding anniversary. I wrote it after I'd gone to the beach and was feeling exposed, vulnerable, and I felt sort of pretty. My vitiligo had progressed quite a bit in the past 2 years, and I was really trying to embrace it. The poem would eventually become the foundation for a children's book, I've Got Spots, that I self-published last year. I'm proud to say that the project has raised over $10,000 in less than a month on GoFundMe. I ordered 500 copies and they were delivered to my door in November, and now I've sold over 450 of them. This book has been my phoenix. I struggled a long time with my vitiligo until I was able to use it for something bigger. I wanted to teach kids to love their unique skin and to embrace it. Through this project, I've connected with kids and adults from all over the world that I would have never met unless I was on this journey. It's been so rewarding and a constant reminder to practice what I preach. I can't tell others to accept it if I can't. I started to accept myself fully, unapologetically. My mom burned my Harry Potter books because she thought I would become a witch. Well, I grew up to become an author and a witch. Yep, so a published witch, just like J.K. Rowling. Just kidding, not that good. To me, it means I listen to my, So I know that word witch, it means something different to everyone. And to me, it means that I listen to my instincts, to my internal knowings, knowings that I shut off for years. I respect Mother Nature and all of her internal knowings. I respect her wisdom. I love animals and I keep them off my plate. I use plants as medicine and I use my strengths and magic to heal the hurt in the world. Not only am I a witch, but I also just started a coven. Since I can't go to Hogwarts, which I would love to right now, I found a few women who are on a similar spiritual journey, and we get together and we talk about the good we can do in the world as healers. Everything and everyone is energy, and I just want to use mine for good. There have been many burns and many rebirths, and I'm sure this cycle will keep repeating, but I know I will come out of it more magical every time. And I feel lucky to have found running and this amazing community. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the running community tonight. Running, I think, is a whole nother kind of magic. And I have turned to it many times before to create, to get through my anxiety and depression with vitiligo, and to stay grounded in turbulent times. And I will continue to turn to it during these times. Much love and safe running to all of you. Oh, last thing. I heard today that Dr. Fauci and his wife went running last night, so I'm pretty sure that that's the go ahead to keep running. All right, now I'm really done. Thanks, y'all.
Up for Danielle Wheeler, everybody. Yeah, Danielle. Couple things. First of all, Dr. Anthony Fauci apparently runs 3 miles a day, which is one of the reasons why he's still an essential human being at 79. Yep. I also want to say, in regard to Danielle's story, one of the things that I've often
Chicago Area Runners Association.
It helps you get you over your self-consciousness about the way you look pretty quickly, no matter what your particular dysmorphia may be. Mine was always that I was always a little too overweight. We all carry our particular burdens. And the nice thing about running is you get out there, you put on your shorts, you put on your sports bra, put on your shirt, and you just sort of expose yourself to the world as you assert your right to be there. And I have found that more than anything, running has allowed me to be more comfortable in the world than I would be without it. We've got 3 more storytellers to go. But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, a word from our sponsor, Mr. Greg Hipp, the Executive Director of CARA.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm so glad that we can all come together. You know, for all of us that know about CARA, they know our official mission is to serve and advocate for the local running community and provide opportunities for all runners to train, race, learn, be social, and volunteer. But I think everybody really knows when it comes down to it that a lot of what we're all about is what we call the power of the group. And I think, you know, coming together tonight like this is a great example of that. You know, if it was only about running, then we wouldn't be coming together for things outside of running. And I think, you know, what makes me love CARA so much is how, you know, it's truly a community of people. And this is kind of a special example of that, and not just a community of CARA members, but really the whole running community. And, you know, this challenging time that we're all dealing with has, you know, separated us from our runs, but I think in a lot of ways it's brought much of the running community together. And, you know, many of the different groups and different entities in town, you know, we've all been talking, how can we work together? How can we make sure we protect each other? You know, whether that's Fleet Feet and CES and Chicago Run and Ram Racing, USOL, you know, everybody's communicating and talking and learning how we can help each other out. And so it's really special how the running community is responding to such a big challenge. And, you know, these are going to be challenging times for anybody that works in running, and it's going to be challenging times for CARA. You know, but I feel strong that, you know, CARA is as strong as it's ever been, and a lot of that's because of its member base. And, you know, it'll be a tough time for CARA, but we'll all come out of it. And I can't wait till we all get to come back together and do what we love, and that's be together as a group. So, you know, I encourage everybody to keep running, you know, do it safely. You know, there is, you know, no better time to enjoy the solitude of running. You know, and so we're certainly, it's the sport that's best suited for the times we're in, but it has a bigger benefit beyond just getting fit, and that's the community. And so we'll come back together to that again soon. And I look forward to seeing everybody hopefully in a month or so back at group runs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg. It's good. Unmute. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. Thank you, Greg. It's good to see you virtually. Like I said, 3 storytellers down, 3 to go. I am particularly excited to introduce our next storyteller because one of the things I've been lucky enough to do is to run as a guide for visually impaired runners. I've done it 4 times, including at the Boston Marathon in 2013, which was an interesting day for a lot of reasons. So let me introduce to you Israel Antonio. He is an actor, playwright, and athlete. He is the former USA Paratriathlon national champion, the fastest completely blind male in the United States, and a 7-time Boston Marathon qualifier. And he appeared on the cover of Chicago Athlete magazine along former CARA executive director Wendy Jane. Let me just welcome for all of you, since you're muted, Israel Antonio.
I think I'm unmuted. You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, here we go. Pro Ironman triathlete Kimberly Shaw tugged at my arm. On my left, elite marathoner Jen Paff was imploring me to make one final sprint to the finish. I finished my second Chicago Marathon in 4 hours and 50 minutes. As they congratulated me, I was appreciative of the fact that for a blind runner to qualify for the Boston Marathon, I needed to only run a certified marathon in under 5 hours. Jen and Kimberly were excited that I finally BQ'd for the first time. I, on the other hand, was thinking about how I was born with sight. Unfortunately, I lost it overnight. In those days, I could run faster than this. My friends who could see have to run a marathon in under 3.5 hours to qualify for Boston. Before I could take my place in that famous race, I owed it to myself to break 4 hours. Jen and Kimberly said that when I was ready to do that, they would guide me. In order for me to pull that off, I'd have to shed my personal record by 51 minutes. So I reached out to Jenna Parker for that Herculean task. After all, as one of the best professional triathletes in the world, she could teach me how to embrace the pain and run through it. For the next year, my daily mantra was sexier, leaner, faster. Race day. As I stood in Grant Park, waiting for the gun to sound, I thought of Jenna's last instructions to me. Trust your guides, trust your training, believe in yourself. The game plan was simple. Kimberly Shaw would guide me for the first half. Jen would pick me up the second half. If I could maintain a 9-minute per mile pace, I would get through 20 miles in 3 hours. From there, a 6.2 mile mad dash to break 4 hours. The race started. I felt good. Mile 3, Kimberly, you're running strong. Hold back a little bit. Mile 7, Kimberly, you're looking fluid. Step off the gas a little bit. Mile 11, I can't do this. There's no way I can maintain this pace another 15.2 miles. Kimberly, you don't have to. Just focus on one foot ahead of the other. At the midway point, Jen took over the guiding. Kimberly slid over to my right. I was fluid, I was fast. So much so that I was on pace. I was running an 8:25 pace through the first 17 miles. In fact, Kimberly told me that early on, when she kept telling me to pull back, I was doing 7:40. But now it was mile 18. A tightness hit my left hamstring. A super ball was ready to pop. At mile 19, tightness in my right hamstring. Another super ball. By 20, I was getting slower and slower. This was when I was supposed to do a mad dash. Instead, I was at 10-minute per mile pace. Parked cars were passing me by. Maybe I should walk. Jen, No, you won't. But it really hurts. No, it doesn't. I had to keep running. Kimberly said, we can't do this for you. You have to want it. Now run! A female spectator yelled out, ladies, he's blind and in pain. Please. Jen, oh, shut up. Kimberly, he knows what he signed up for. I didn't sign up for this. As I was getting slower and slower, I thought, what could I use for motivation? Jen then said, I will drag you the last mile, but you gotta get there first. I tried picking up the pace for 30 seconds. My leg gave out. A moment later, I tried again, another 30 seconds. My leg gave out again. Finally, mile 25, I brace myself because Jen is about to drag me, right? Kimberly, she's not a sled dog. Don't make her do that. Run with her. Jen picked up the pace. I had to go fast as she screamed at the other runners to get out of the way, zigzagging through the crowd. We were halfway from the finish line. I didn't know if I could still break 4 hours, and maybe it didn't matter. I just knew that I was marching up top Mount Roosevelt. Final turn, final sprint, timing mat, finish line. They both hugged me, at which point Kimberly said, you just did the last 1.5 miles in under 8 minutes. Jen then reached over and said, you're going to Boston. You just ran a 3:58. I've since run the marathon much faster than that. Jen has guided me at Boston. I've won regional and national titles in triathlon. But there is nothing more splendiferous than realizing in real time that I had just gone from being a back of the pack finisher to now having a seat at the table with the elite. And all thanks to Jenna Parker, Jen Paff, Kimberly Shaw, and my race sponsor, Pinnacle Performance Company, and their CEOs, Dave Lewis and Gary Mills. This is leaner, faster, sexier Israel, saying thank you and good night.
Good job.
Bravo, Israel. It's a great story. It reminded me of the finish of the 2013 Boston Marathon that William Greer, the guy I was guiding that day, very similar to your finish. He managed to pick it up and accomplish quite something. Our next storyteller is Anne Bonney. She is a professional speaker, author, podcast host, and corporate leadership trainer. By the way, if you can hear the music from my neighbor next door coming through my speakers, well, I can't blame him. We all need to do what we need to do. Anyway, in 2002, Anne ran her first mile, and by the end of 2003, she had run 2 marathons. She has since run 27, plus 3 ultras and 2 Ironmans, all, she says, quite slowly. Asia and Australia are the 2 continents left in her quest to run a marathon on each one of the 7. She's finding lots of time to pound out the miles in the past couple of weeks, and she completed the COVID-19 social distance 19-miler last weekend alone, of course. Please say hello to Anne Bonney.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody. My brother and I were standing at the starting line of the 2007 Chicago Marathon, surrounded by 18,000 other runners on a day the weatherman predicted a high of 97 with 100% humidity. The outlook was so bleak that apparently over 10,000 registered runners didn't even show up that morning. I was doing 2 or 4 marathons a year back then, again, very slowly. And this would be a training run for a 50-miler I was going to do later that fall. But my musician brother, who I was surprised even had running shoes, this was his first marathon. So it was kind of a big deal. Despite the potential danger the heat presented, I was thrilled to be there to experience and supervise his first endurance journey. We agreed we'll take it slow. We'll have fun. The goal is just to finish. The gun went off and off we went. Now, about an hour later, the degrees hit 90. I saw some other runners cooling off in a decorative fountain, and I thought, well, that looks really like a good idea. So I dipped my hat in the cool-ish water and dumped it on my head. And my brother reminded me that pigeons and probably a few humans use that as a bathtub and a toilet, and so I didn't dunk my head in like the runner next to me. By 10 a.m., we were walking more than we were running, and we saw several people on the sidewalk being attended to by the medical people. It was thick and soupy, and all along the course, the spectators had coolers of ice and hoses, and they were giving out water and oranges and anything that was going to help us out. It really was awesome. About a half hour later, we got to a water stop that didn't have any Gatorade left. We hadn't had any electrolytes in a while, and I knew we needed some because we were sweating our butts off. So I sent Jim into the nearest 7-Eleven with a moist $20 bill that he had extracted from his sock, and I told him to get some fuel. A few minutes later, he proudly returned and presented me with a microwave burrito and a Jolt Cola. I took a deep breath and I scolded myself for not being more specific, deposited the burrito in the trash, and then took some money and went in for 2 sport bottles of Gatorade. Now, at mile 13, we got to a water stop that was super chaotic. People were standing around resting. They were trying to take in nutrition. They were barfing in the garbage can. They were sweating in the porta potty line, going to the medical tent. I heard an ambulance coming. I stopped to grab a drink and retie my shoe. And when I stood up, my brother was gone. I couldn't find him anywhere. Now, as you know, this is pretty typical in a big race like this. So I just ran past the water stop and stopped and turned around and stood there to see if I could find him. And about 5-7 minutes went by and I still couldn't see him. So I figured he probably just went up ahead, figuring I had gone up ahead. So I decided if I just ran a little bit faster, I could probably catch him. Now, I was a little worried, but more than that, I was pissed. I mean, I had not traveled to Chicago from my home in Baltimore to run this race by myself. We had so much fun during the first half of the race, talking and laughing and taking pictures, and running a marathon alone, especially under these conditions, it just sucked. Now, to deal with the heat, the city had opened up many of the fire hydrants to help us cool off, which was really nice. And it turned out to be super useful because at the next water stop, not only were they out of Gatorade, they were out of water. And fortunately, I still had the 7-Eleven Gatorade bottle. So I decided to just fill it up at the fire hydrant, which frankly is really hard because it's like filling a bottle under Niagara Falls. And it doesn't taste very good at all. But at least I had water. So I jogged a few more miles, but I still couldn't find my brother. I'm looking everywhere. I'm looking everywhere. Now I was getting worried. Was he okay? Had he sped up trying to catch me and then passed out? Or had he stopped for another burrito and was cramping somewhere under a tree? I mean, the sound of sirens was constant, and there was not very many spectators left. The herd of runners had thinned considerably. And then I heard a bullhorn up in the distance. And as I got closer, I heard, the race has been canceled. The clock's been turned off. You're going to be rerouted directly to the finish line about 2 miles away. Please walk. Suddenly, I realized that I had a bigger problem than just running this race alone. I had no phone, no money, no credit card. I was in a town I didn't know very well. I had no idea where my brother was. I didn't know where he lived, and I didn't know his phone number. The weight of my own situation suddenly came crashing down, and I was plodding along, kind of racking my brain, trying to figure out what the heck was I going to do? What if I couldn't even find him at the finish line? What would I do then? Now, I suddenly realized, okay, there's one phone number I know in the whole world other than my own, and that's my parents. So if I was lucky, someone would be home and they would give me Jim's number. But I didn't have a phone. I decided that my best bet was to accost a friendly looking spectator and ask if I could borrow their phone. So a few minutes of searching, I saw a woman who was still cheering. She looked really friendly and not like a lot of the other sweaty, grumpy people. So I ran up to her and I was hot and I was kind of freaking out and I was kind of babbling. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Can I please borrow your phone? Because I lost my brother and I'm not from here and I don't know. And I'm from Michigan. So I got to go to Michigan. Can I borrow your phone? And fortunately, the poor woman took pity on me, lent me her phone. My mom was home, and I finally got a hold of my brother. I was overjoyed. I was relieved. I was pissed. I was a little bit weepy. I'm like, are you okay? Where the hell are you? Don't please drink a lot of water. Where are you? Did you eat a burrito? I'm like freaking out on the phone. Finally, I shut up, and we agreed on a place to meet. So I wiped the sweat off of the kind stranger's phone as best I could on my wet t-shirt, apologetically gave it back in profusely appreciation for her saving my life. The main crisis was averted, but I still had 2 miles to the rendezvous point, and I wanted to get there as fast as I could. So I took another swig of the delicious fire hydrant water, and I jogged on. The sound of sirens was everywhere. I was weaving in and out of the zombied remains of my fellow runners, and I heard a cop yell at me to stop running. And I waved at the officer. I'm like, hey, I'm okay. I feel good. He goes, ma'am, please stop running. We have run out of ambulances. If you go down, we can't help you. So I decided to walk. I finally made it to our meeting spot. Jim was there laying under a tree, eating a bag of Doritos. I tackled him, I punched him in the arm, and then I squeezed him as hard as I could. It had only been about 2 hours since I'd lost him, but this was one of the sweetest reunions of my life. I was so glad he was okay. I was so glad I had found him, and I was so glad to be done. So the L trains were sardine packed with hot, sweaty runners. So despite being absolutely disgusting, we opted to stop for a burger and a beer before heading home. And we kept up a constant chatter about everything we'd seen and experienced during the race. We felt like we'd survived a war together. We still laugh about how that day went down and how lucky I was that Mom was actually home. And while he never made good on his promise to do another marathon with me, we have done a few shorter races, and at every one we finished together hand in hand, and without fail, I always have my phone, an emergency number on the back of my bib, and a soggy $20 bill in my sports bra. Thank you.
Everybody. Thank you so much, Ann. I was there in that race with you. I didn't. Hang on. I hope I'm not muted. All right. Next up, our last storyteller for the evening is Mr. Chris Russell. He's joining us from somewhere in New England. He is a yak farmer. I hope he talks to us about yak farming, but it's not up to me. And a zombie hunter. Ditto. He's also a marathoner, triathlete, mountain biker, and ultra runner. Chris has been producing the Run Run Live podcast since 2008. I was lucky enough to appear in it once. In 2015, he wrote a book called Marathon BQ, How to Qualify for the Boston Marathon in 14 weeks with a full-time job and a family. And if it wasn't for the current unpleasantness, he would be tapering for his 21st Boston Marathon in just a couple of weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our final speaker for the evening, Mr. Chris Russell.
All right. Guys can hear me, right? Yeah. So thank you, Peter. We have come to the end. I am the caboose on this train, and fittingly, I'm going to tell you a story about a finish line. So sit back and close your eyes and join me in the triumph and glory. I am not afraid. As you near the 25-mile mark, the iconic Citgo sign is right in front of you. But you see it through the red haze of pain, fatigue, and exhaustion. You've been fighting the pace for 2 or 3 miles, you're on fire, and you're losing altitude. It's not Heartbreak Hill or any of the storied hills of Newton. They're the hardest hill on this course. It is that small bump over the Mass Pike at mile 25 that crushes a man's soul and spirit. It brings a fresh hell of protest from your mind and your machine. If the hills didn't take you out early and you're still racing, this climb is a gut punch. Oh, hold on a second. Forgot my mouse. You push down the demons clawing at your mind, screaming at you to stop. You put the pain aside, as you have done in so many training sessions over the past 3 months, and push through the red haze. You are willing your knees to rise up to the hill. You are pushing your hips forward and trying not to fight the hill. You relax into the pain as your training has taught you, but your legs move like they are trapped in wet cement. Your body hears your commands, but something is lost in the translation, and your stride is cropped and jerky. Your heart is hammering your blood thick with effort into muscles rotten with fatigue. The green walls of Fenway Park slide by on the right, but you probably won't see them because your mind has narrowed your focus in an attempt to hang on. All you can see is a dim tunnel of pavement with a seething blur of hysterical crowds on the edges. People are screaming, maybe even screaming at you. Thousands of people are screaming at you, but you don't hear them or see them. All you can hear is a dull background roar and the sound of your own heart and ragged breathing as you hang on, focusing your last shred of humanity on keeping the legs turning over and moving forward. There's a water stop before Kenmore Square. If you're still racing, you won't stop to get a drink because the only thing keeping you moving forward is the autonomy of momentum. To stop or even pause here would break that trance of momentum, and it's too late for water or Gatorade. None of that can help you now. None of that can help you get to the finish. The only fuel you have left at your disposal is courage, and you dare not pause to test your tenuous hold on it. You are racing now based on sheer muscle memory. Those hours and hours of training in the cold and dark, those interminable track workouts that brought you to the edge of your sanity every week have given you the ability to invoke this running dream state. Your body is exhausted. Its reserves long ago lost. Your muscles are junk. Your mind is fogged and numb. Each stride brings the ebb and flow of soul-crushing pain. The only thing keeping you moving forward, racing, is the burned-in effort of your training. In Kenmore Square, there is a sign that says 1 mile, and the crowds are surging at the snow fences on either side, animated and dynamic. You can smell the finish. You search the road up ahead for that underpass that precedes the turn onto Hereford Street, as if seeing this is the most important thing in the world, as if the fate of humankind dangles in the balance of seeing where that pack of runners ahead disappears under Mass Ave. It hurts badly. Each footfall on the old Boston roads rolls a wave of instability and pain up through your core. But you know the finish is up there, somewhere, just out of sight, just out of reach, and you will your legs to move like a madman fighting 100-mile-an-hour headwind. It's only a mile. That's 4 laps of the track. You push back the veil of red fog to remember the hundreds of 1,600-meter repeats you have run in your training, and you're not afraid. It's only 4 laps. Your body knows how to do this. Your body has been programmed for this moment. Your mind has been conditioned for this moment. Struggling up out of the underpass, you see the crowds of runners disappearing to the right around the 90-degree turn onto Hereford Street. The crowds are roaring and pushing in on the fences like a living thing, trying to snatch you from the street and eat you. They are pulling you, digesting you, urging you to push, to run, to throw yourself at this race of champions, this race of gods, this worthy race that you have trained so hard for. Runners stumble to your left and to your right. They collapse in agony from cramps so close to the finish. They walk, they stagger, they bleed. They push with everything they have, their willpower, their courage, the very essence of their existence. All these reserves and more are poured into the battle. The final moments of this battle draw near as you push up Hereford and make that turn onto Boylston Street. Through the red haze of your vision, the finish line is there, and it seems so far away. Somewhere is the 26-mile mark, but you don't see it. You see only that finish line. You focus on it like a dying man grasping at the light. You tell your body to kick. You tell your body to give it everything that it has left, to pick up the pace and move towards that beautiful blue and yellow archway. And your body tries to run, to close the race, but it has already given all it had. You're running on pure courage now, and any incremental speed is dipping into further deficit. Your legs churn, your heart bashes against your insides, trying to move the waist-sodden blood, and your lungs cough and gasp for purchase in the harbor-scented air. The red fog of your vision begins to collapse in from the sides, and all you can see at the end of a very long and blurry tunnel is that finish line. You've trained and suffered for this moment. You have gone deep to places that you didn't know you could, and farther than most people will dare to go. You have earned the right to be here in this most holy of places. You are making it worthy with your effort, your suffering. You try to visualize the greats who have suffered here before you with their courage and their commitment. Great marathoners, Clarence DeMar, Johnny Kelly, Bill Rogers, Neb Kavliski, Rosa Mota, Uda Pippik, and Joni Benoit. They all passed through here. They all did the work and suffered for their passion to make it to this place. You have done the work and suffered for your passion. You have earned the right to suffer in your courage on this final quarter-mile lap down Boylston Street. The unicorn is in your blood now. You are part of a band of brothers and sisters who know the secret thrill and passion of worthy suffering of racing the Boston Marathon. As you collapse those last few strides across the timing mats and the yellow and blue line in the road slides by, you feel the purest of joys. The joy of giving yourself fully in a worthy battle. You are now part of that great history. You are a different person than the person who started that training campaign 3 months ago, and you will never be the same. You are not afraid anymore because you have journeyed through that dark place and have come out forged and strong and indestructible. Thank you very much.
Yay! Thank you, Chris. I want to thank, first of all our storytellers. They were Lisa Ebel, Kevin Biosi, Danielle Wheeler, Israel Antonio, Ann Bonnie, and Chris Russell. Please give it up for them. Assume they can hear you. And also, of course, to Kara for arranging this wonderful evening. It's a weird time for all of us, even though as runners, we're used to spending time by ourselves. So I was eager to do this because anything we can do to reach out to each other and remind ourselves we're not all in this alone is a great thing to do. So thank you for everybody who joined us tonight. I hope it was valuable and fun and interesting and insightful for you. And I hope I get to see every single one of you on the Lakefront Path sometime soon. Good night, everybody, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.